The diamond ring was meant for someone else. Seo Junwoo stood inside Seoul's most exclusive jewelry house, cold and certain, the way men who have ordered deaths are always certain, until the door opened, until she walked in, until the air in the room shifted like a storm changing direction. She was 7 months pregnant, luminous, and she had not seen him yet. His heart, the one he had convinced himself no longer worked, cracked straight down the middle. Welcome to Afro-Korea TV. Please like, share, and subscribe. The boutique was called Éclat, French for brilliance, and it sat on the quietest corner of Cheongdam-dong, tucked between a private members club and a florist that only took appointments. The kind of place where the staff never asked your name because they already knew it. Where purchases were wrapped in black velvet, not paper. Where men like Seo Junwoo came when they wanted something permanent. He had arrived at 10:47 a.m., flanked by 2 men in charcoal suits who stayed outside at the door. His lead security, Park Hyun, had swept the block twice before Junwoo stepped from the car. That was the cost of being who he was, every ordinary moment arranged like a military operation. He stood at the main display case, hands clasped behind his back, studying a solitaire cushion-cut ring on a platinum band. 3.4 carats. D color, flawless clarity. His jeweler, Mr. O, stood across from him at a respectful distance, speaking in the careful, measured tone reserved for very important clients. Her exact ring size is a 6, Chairman Seo. We've already confirmed with her assistant. Chairman. That was what the legitimate world called him. Chairman of SJ Holdings, one of the largest private investment conglomerates in South Korea. The man who appeared at charity galas and government luncheons with a mild smile and an impeccable suit. The underground world had other names for him. Junwoo reached down and lifted the ring from the velvet tray. It caught the light and fractured it into 1,000 small fires across the display case glass. He felt nothing looking at it, which meant it was probably the right choice. He was about to tell Mr. O to box it when the boutique door opened. The soft chime of the entrance bell was nothing unusual. Éclat opened to the public at 11, and it was now 4 minutes past. What stopped Junwoo was not the sound. It was the scent that moved through the room. Something warm, something like shea and jasmine, something his body remembered before his mind caught up. He looked up. Linda Osei stepped through the door. She was more beautiful than he remembered. That was the first coherent thought he managed, and it came with a kind of violence, like something thrown against the inside of his chest. She wore a deep burgundy wrap dress that curved around the swell of her belly, her natural hair pulled up in a loose crown, a few coils escaping at her temples. She moved carefully, one hand resting on her stomach with the instinctive protectiveness of a woman who carries something precious. Her skin was deep brown, luminous under the boutique lighting, and her eyes, dark, wide, fringed with lashes that had always made him feel caught, were fixed on the display case to her left. She had not seen him yet. Junwoo did not move. He could not. Something in him had simply ceased to function, the cold, calculating machinery that had run him for the past 14 months since she had walked out of his life. He stood with the 3.4-carat ring still in his hand, and he watched her, and for the first time in over a year, he felt something real. Then Mr. O said, "Good morning, madam. Welcome to Éclat," and Linda looked up. Their eyes met across the room. The silence that followed was not empty. It was dense, pressurized, the kind of silence that exists in the moment between a lightning strike and the thunder. Linda's hand tightened on her stomach. The color did not leave her face. She had always been too composed for that. But something shifted in her expression. Something cracked and was quickly sealed. "Junwoo," she said. Just his name. No title. No honorific. The way she had always said it, like it belonged to her. Linda. His voice came out quieter than intended. Later, he would think about that moment the way you think about the last second before a car accident. The strange clarity, the inventory of small details that do not matter but that you cannot stop recording. The way she held herself, the slight lift of her chin, the ring in his hand, which suddenly felt absurd. Mr. O, who had survived 30 years in the luxury goods business entirely on the strength of his ability to read rooms, stepped silently backward, and found something to arrange on a shelf. Linda turned back to the display case she had been approaching. She had a small piece of paper in her hand, a reference number, the kind you get when you order a custom piece. "I'm here to pick something up," she said, to no one in particular. "Of course." Mr. O materialized instantly. "Miss Osei? The custom pendant, yes. Let me retrieve it from the back." He disappeared. The boutique was very quiet. Junwoo set the ring down on the display case. He heard the small click of it against the glass and watched her flinch slightly at the sound, though she kept her eyes forward. "How long?" he asked. She turned. "How long what?" He looked at her stomach. Something moved across her face. Pride, pain, and something that might have been defiance, all in the same instant. 7 months, she said. 7 months. He did his arithmetic, without meaning to. They had ended 14 months ago. So not his. The thought arrived and sat in him like a stone dropped into deep water. He felt the ripple of it moving through him, displacing things, settling into places that had not been disturbed in a long time. "Are you well?" he asked. It was an inadequate question. He knew it when he asked it. "I'm fine," Linda said. "You don't need to. Are you eating properly?" "Sleeping." She stared at him. "Junwoo, I'm asking. You don't get to ask that anymore." Her voice was level, careful, the way you speak when you are handling something that could break. "You lost that right." He did not argue. She was correct. Mr. O returned with a small velvet box, opened it on the counter between them, and Linda turned to examine it. A pendant on a fine gold chain, a small crescent of paved diamonds framing a dark opal at its center. Her face softened looking at it. Not at him. At the pendant. Junwoo watched her sign the receipt, watched her tuck the box into her bag with both hands, watched her press her palm briefly to her stomach in that unconscious gesture that he could not stop looking at. Then she looked up and found him still watching, and her expression closed again. "Goodbye, Junwoo." She walked out. He stood in the empty boutique for a full 30 seconds before he remembered where he was, and who he was, and what he had come here to do. He looked at the ring on the display case. "Box it," he said. "I'll come back for it." He left without it. A few days later, the memory still lived in his body like a bruise he could not stop pressing. He told himself it was nothing. A coincidence. Seoul was a large city and Cheongdam-dong was where people with money went to spend it, and Linda Osei had always had excellent taste. The encounter meant nothing. He also told himself he was not going to look into her. He looked into her by that same evening. Mr. Yu, his information officer, delivered the brief with the practiced blankness of a man who had long ago stopped being surprised by anything his employer requested. Linda Osei, 31 years old. Ghanaian British, Seoul resident for the past 6 years. Founder and creative director of Soul & Story, a luxury accessories brand that had grown from a small studio in Itaewon to a flagship boutique in Hanamdong and stockists in Tokyo, London, and Dubai. Annual revenue climbing. Critical reputation sterling. She had been nominated for 2 industry awards in the past year alone. She was living in a penthouse apartment in Yongsan-gu, purchased, not rented, 14 months ago. Shortly after she left him. She was 7 months pregnant. The child's father was not publicly known, and Mr. Yu's contacts had not yet been able to determine. "Stop there," Junwoo said. Mr. Yu stopped. "That's all I need." It was not all he needed, but it was all he was prepared to receive that evening. The next day, he sent flowers. Not roses. She had always found them obvious. He sent a large arrangement of white proteas and dark calla lilies from the florist on the corner near a claw, with no card. She would know. He did not know why he sent them. He sent them anyway. He found out 2 days later from the florist that she had accepted them at the door, looked at them for a long moment, and then sent them to the nurse's station at the maternal health clinic she attended nearby. He told himself this was a clear message, and he would respect it. The following week, he saw her again. Not by design, or at least, that was what he told himself. Despite having restructured 2 morning meetings to ensure he was driving through Hanamdong at the precise time, Mr. Yu had noted, she typically walked to her studio. He was in the back of his car. She was on the pavement, her bag over one shoulder, coffee in her other hand, dressed in wide-legged trousers and a fitted top that did nothing to hide the beauty of her, the fullness of her, the life she was carrying. She was laughing at something on her phone. The sight of her laughing hit him harder than the sight of her at a claw hat. His driver kept driving. Junwoo watched her until the car turned the corner. He had loved her. That was the part he had worked very hard for 14 months to reclassify as something lesser, an attachment, an infatuation, a weakness to be excised and replaced. He had been largely successful. He had, in fact, become engaged to Soo-yeon, the daughter of a political ally, a woman who was beautiful and composed and appropriate in all the ways that mattered in his world, and who would never ask him to choose between her and his empire. He had the ring. The engagement was to be announced at a dinner next month. He sat in the back of his car and watched the corner where Linda had been, long after she was gone. 3 days later, Linda was at her studio. Seoul and Story's Hanamdong location was everything she had built it to be: warm concrete floors, arched windows that let in good afternoon light, shelves of hand-stitched bags and accessories arranged with the care of a gallery. The studio behind the boutique was her kingdom: fabric swatches, leather samples, the long work table covered in sketches and color references, the scent of dye and coffee, and the faint sweetness of the candle she kept burning near the window. She was at the work table when her assistant, Dammy, appeared in the doorway with an expression Linda had learned to read. "There is a man outside asking to see you. I have meetings all afternoon. Tell him to book through. He said to tell you his name is Park Hyun." Linda's hand stopped moving over her sketch. Park Hyun was Seo Junwoo's head of security. She had known Park Hyun for 3 years. She had once, during a power outage in Junwoo's apartment, played cards with him for 2 hours while they waited for the generators to come on. He was a serious, methodical man, and he would not come to her studio on a personal errand, which meant he had been sent. She set down her pencil. "Tell him I'll be out in 5 minutes." Park Hyun was waiting on the pavement outside, hands clasped, as composed as always. He bowed slightly when she appeared. "Miss Osei." "What does he want?" Hyun SSI. No performance. She had never had patience for formality with people she knew, and her patience was currently at a low level. Park Hyun handed her a card. A restaurant name, Sora, a private dining establishment in Gangnam, Korean French tasting menu, the kind of place that required a 6-week reservation for ordinary people and a phone call for people like Junwoo. "Chairman Seo would like to have dinner with you. This Thursday, 7 p.m. private dining room." Linda looked at the card. She looked at it for long enough that Park Hyun maintained his expression only through considerable professional effort. "He could have texted," she said. Chairman Seo felt this was a matter that warranted a personal approach. "Tell him no." Park Hyun nodded carefully. "I'll convey that. And Hyun SSI." She softened her voice, because this was not his fault. "Tell him I'm fine. I know that's actually what he wanted to know." Park Hyun's expression shifted, almost imperceptibly. "Yes, Miss Osei." That evening, Junwoo received the refusal. He was on his penthouse terrace with a glass of whiskey he had not touched, looking at the city. Park Hyun delivered the message. He also delivered Linda's second message, the one about being fine, and then stood waiting. "She looked well?" Junwoo asked. "She looked healthy, sir. Busy." "Good." A pause. "She smiled when she told me to tell you that," Park Hyun said. This was far beyond his job description. He said it anyway. Junwoo was quiet. "Leave me," he said. He stood on the terrace and let the October wind move through him and thought about the way she had looked laughing at her phone on the Hanam pavement, and the way she had looked at a claw, and the way she had looked in his studio in the old apartment 3 years ago, when she had first told him she was not willing to be a secret anymore, and he had made the wrong choice. He still had the ring. He still had not returned to a claw to collect it. The following Thursday, Seoul's annual Arts Foundation Gala was held at the Lotte Hotel Grand Ballroom. Seoul and Story was a headline sponsor. Linda attended in a midnight blue gown that moved like water and made every photographer in the room turn. She wore the crescent opal pendant at her throat. Her publicist, June walked with her, and Dammy trailed behind with a bag of things Linda might need, and the evening was arranged and managed, and Linda had been managing evenings like this for years. What Linda had not arranged was Seo Junwoo. He was at the far end of the room with Soo-yeon on his arm when she spotted him first. He was in black tie, the way he wore everything, with the effortless authority of a man who has never needed to try. Soo-yeon was in ivory, porcelain pretty, and the two of them looked like exactly what they were, a power couple being assembled in public. Linda looked away. She took a glass of sparkling water from a passing tray and focused on the conversation she was having with the foundation's director. She was aware of him moving through the room the way you're aware of a barometric change. Before you can see it, your body knows something has shifted. She did not look toward him. She laughed at the director's anecdote about a sculptor in Busan and complimented the foundation's new exhibition program and accepted a compliment about her gown from a gallery owner and was perfectly fine.
She was not fine.
He crossed her line of sight at 9:22, headed toward the bar. Their eyes did not meet this time. He had not seen her yet, or if he had, he was performing better than she was. Then a man appeared at her elbow. "You have to be the most beautiful woman in this room," the man said, in accented Korean with the ease of someone who expects this to land well. She turned. Tall, broad-shouldered, silver-haired, late 40s, Italian cut suit. He was introducing himself, something Kim, something director, some company. He had the confident smile of a man accustomed to women responding well. Linda gave him the polite, professional smile she had been using all evening. "Thank you. I'm Linda Osei, Soul and Story. I know exactly who you are." He glanced at her pendant, then lower, and caught himself and looked back at her face with the particular expression of a man recalibrating. "I've been meaning to reach out about a potential partnership, but perhaps we could start with a drink." "I'm not drinking," she said pleasantly. "The water is excellent, though." He laughed. "Then let me get you water. And perhaps give me 20 minutes, because I would love to talk about." She is in the middle of a conversation. The voice came from Linda's right, low and even and entirely without warmth. She did not need to turn to know it, but she turned. Junwoo stood just inside her orbit, champagne glass in hand, expression the particular variety of pleasant that she knew meant the opposite of pleasant. He was looking at the other man with the focused attention of someone considering a problem. "Seo," the man said, recognition and caution arriving simultaneously on his face. "I didn't realize you were." "She is occupied," Junwoo said. "Good evening." The man excused himself with a speed that would have been amusing in other circumstances. Linda looked at Junwoo. He looked back at her. He had moved to stand at an angle that blocked her from the general room, subtly, in the way he had always positioned himself without making it obvious. "I didn't need that," she said. He was not going to stop. "I can handle men who don't stop." "I know." A pause. "I didn't like how he was looking at you." Linda was quiet for a moment. "You don't get to have opinions about that." "No," he agreed. "I don't." He looked at her pendant. Something moved briefly in his expression, recognition, she supposed. He had seen it at a claw. "You look well," he said. "Linda." The way he said her name still did something to her chest that she refused to examine. She took a slow breath. "Soo-yeon is looking for you," she said. He did not look away. "She's with her friends." "Junwoo, are you sleeping enough?" "I am going to walk away now," she said. "Are you in the building tomorrow?" He said it quickly before she could move. "In the studio." "Are you in?"
"Yes."
"I work every day." She tilted her head. "Why?" He held her gaze for one long beat. "No reason," he said. "Good evening, Linda." He walked back across the room, back to Soo-yeon, and Linda stood with her water and her opal pendant and the infuriating, impossible, persistent ache of having loved him and breathed through it until it settled. June appeared at her side. "Was that who I think it was?" "We're leaving at 10, Linda said. Over the next few days, something shifted. Linda noticed it in small ways, then larger ones. The coffee she ordered from the cafe downstairs arrived at her studio each morning, with a receipt that said paid. Her order exact, including the modification she had started making since the pregnancy: less espresso, more steamed oat milk. She had not authorized anyone on her team to set this up. She noticed the new night security camera installed in the alley behind her studio building, professional grade, small, angled precisely at the back entrance where she sometimes left after late evenings. Her building management denied commissioning it. She noticed that when she attended her next clinic appointment and mentioned to the receptionist that the parking was always difficult, she received a call the following day from a private medical transport company she had never contacted, offering complimentary transport to and from all prenatal appointments, prearranged and prepaid. She sat with this information for 2 days. Then she called him. He answered on the second ring. Linda. The coffee. The camera. The transport company. She kept her voice level. I want you to stop. A brief silence. Are you using the transport? That's not. You shouldn't be navigating parking in Mapo at 8 months pregnant, he said. It's illogical. Junwoo. I'll remove the camera if it makes you uncomfortable. He said this with the tone of someone making a genuine concession, not performing one. The coffee and the transport, I'm asking you to keep. You don't have the right. I know. His voice dropped slightly. I know that. I'm not trying to claim rights I don't have. I'm just a pause. I'm asking you to let me make sure you're safe. That's all. No conditions. No expectations. Linda sat in her studio with the phone against her ear and the October light coming through her arched windows and her baby pressing gently against her ribs, and she wanted very badly to say no, and she said nothing. Linda. 1 week, she said. And then we talk about stopping. Agreed. She hung up. She sat for a long moment, then pressed both hands to her stomach. I know, she said softly to her daughter, who could not hear her but who Linda spoke to anyway because it helped. I know. A few days later, she told Dammy. Not the full story. Dammy knew the broad shape of it, knew there had been someone, knew the relationship had ended. But she told her the important part, the part that had weight. He doesn't know, Linda said. The baby's father doesn't know. Dammy looked up from her laptop, very slowly. He doesn't know, Linda repeated. I found out after we ended. I had already left. She stopped. I didn't tell him because I needed to know I could do this on my own. That I wasn't staying because of a baby. That I wasn't. She pressed her lips together. I needed to know that I was building something real, not clinging to something that had already broken. Dammy was quiet for a moment. Linda Uni, she said carefully. Is he in a position to know? Like, practically speaking, is he someone who… Yes. Linda looked at the window. He's someone who would want to know. I know that. I've always known that. Then why? Because knowing and being ready are different things. She turned back to her sketches. And I'm not ready yet. Dammy did not push further. But she looked at her employer with the expression of someone doing very complicated arithmetic. That same night, everything changed. With a production error, and she needed the measurements corrected before the morning. Dammy had left at 7. The studio was quiet, warm, safe. She was at the work table when the back door handle moved. It happened at 8:47 p.m. Linda had stayed late at the studio. A delivery had arrived. She froze. It moved again, not the casual testing of someone who might be confused about which door was which, but the deliberate, repeated movement of someone trying the lock with purpose. She reached for her phone. Her hands were steady. She had always been steadier under pressure than she had any right to be. She called Junwoo. It rang once. Linda. Someone is trying the back door of my studio, she said quietly. I don't know if it's… She heard him move, heard him speak in rapid Korean to someone, heard the shift of the phone. Stay away from the door, he said. Do not open it. Can you get to the main floor? I'm on the main floor. The work table.
Good. Stay there.
Don't hang up. She heard a door on his end. She heard him moving, fast. She stayed where she was with the phone against her ear and her heart going faster than she wanted to admit, and she watched the back door. The handle stopped moving. 40 seconds of silence. Then she heard the crash, outside, somewhere in the alley, something heavy falling, and then voices, sharp, Korean, and then nothing. 3 minutes later, her front door opened and Park Hyun stepped through, followed by 2 of Junwoo's men. Miss Osei. Park Hyun scanned the room, then her. Are you hurt? No. She was still holding the phone. What happened? 2 men. They've been removed. He used the word carefully. The chairman is 2 minutes away. She lowered the phone. She sat down on the stool at her work table because her legs had made an executive decision, and she pressed her hand to her stomach, and she breathed. Junwoo came through the front door at 8:53. He was not in a suit. He had been home, apparently, in a dark sweater and trousers, and his hair was slightly disordered, which she had almost never seen, and his face was a thing she had no word for. He crossed the room to her in 4 strides and stopped just short of her, close enough that she had to look up. He looked at her face, then at her hands, then at her stomach. I'm fine, she said. Linda. I'm fine, Junwoo. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word, only slightly, and she hated it. He sat down on the stool beside her, which was low enough that their heights nearly evened, and he looked at her with an expression she had not seen on his face in over a year, the unguarded one, the one that had taken her months the first time to earn, the one that made him look like a man instead of a myth.
Who were they? She asked.
Rivals, he said. An organization that has been testing boundaries, looking for pressure points. She absorbed this.
Me, she said.
I'm a pressure point. He did not answer. The silence was its own answer. They were watching me, she said. They knew about me. Yes. Because of us. The history. Yes. She looked at him. The history that you and I barely have anymore. That's how much of a threat you are, that your enemies are monitoring women you haven't spoken to in 14 months. Linda. My daughter, she said, and her voice dropped and hardened. My daughter is at risk because of something that ended over a year ago. No one will touch you. He said it the way the earth says it is not moving. Absolute. Geological. I will make it impossible for anyone to touch you. I need you to believe. What I need, she said, is to not be in the position of needing that promise. She stood. Her legs held. I need you to find out everything about who sent those men and make sure it doesn't happen again. And then I need you to let me figure out how to keep my daughter safe in a way that doesn't involve. She stopped. He was looking at her. Not at her fear, not at the situation, not at the logistics. At her. Linda, he said quietly. Is she mine? The question sat between them like something detonated. Linda did not move. Junwoo's eyes had not left her face, and she had always been a poor liar in front of him. It was one of the things that had made their relationship what it was. The terrible honesty of them, the way she could never hold a wall up against him for long. Junwoo. She is. He said it not as a question anymore, but as something he was watching himself understand in real time. His face was extraordinary to look at right now. Something vast and unprecedented was happening in it. She's mine. Linda sat back down. I found out after I left, she said. I want you to know that. I found out when I was already building, when I had already decided I was done waiting for you to choose me over the Empire. It wasn't leverage. It was never going to be leverage. I know. His voice was barely above a breath. I didn't know how to tell you. And then it got later and later and she was moving and real, and I was fine, I am fine, and I didn't. Linda. He reached forward and very gently, with one hand, covered both of hers where they rested on her stomach. She stopped speaking. His hand was warm, large. She had always fit inside the circumference of his hands, and she had loved that, had loved being held by someone whose hands made the world feel smaller and safer. She had missed it for 14 months with a ferocity she refused to call what it actually was. I need to tell you something, he said. She waited. I went to Claw to buy a ring, he said. For Soo-yeon. The engagement was scheduled to be announced next month.
He paused.
I left without the ring. I haven't been back for it. She looked at him. I canceled the dinner yesterday, he said. Soo-yeon and I a breath. It was the right thing for 2 people politically. It was not the right thing. Not for me. Junwoo, I'm not telling you this so that you'll... I know. His thumb moved, just slightly, over the back of her hand. I'm not saying it so you'll take me back. I'm saying it because you asked me once to be honest with you when it counted, and I wasn't, and I have been living in that for 14 months, and I am telling you now because it counts. The boutique was very quiet. Outside, in the alley, two of his men stood watch. The city moved around them. Inside this room, Linda sat with the warm weight of his hand over hers and her daughter pressing against her ribs, and she felt the fracture line in herself, the one she had been walking carefully along for 14 months, tremble. You hurt me, she said. Not dramatically. Not with violence. You hurt me by making me invisible for 3 years. By keeping me a secret. By choosing the Empire every time there was a choice to make. Yes. You don't get to just decide that's over. I know. I have a daughter to think about now. I can't. I don't have the luxury of being wrong about you. I know. She looked at him for a long time. The men in the alley, she said. What organization? He told her. The name meant nothing to her, but the look on his face when he said it told her enough. This was not a small threat. This was not something that would be resolved with a terse conversation. How bad is it? She asked. He met her eyes. He had never lied to her. To his credit, had withheld, had omitted, had kept her at a careful distance from the truths of his world, but had never looked her in the face and given her a false answer. Bad enough, he said, that I'm going to need you to let me move you somewhere safe until this is resolved. Linda looked at him. And my studio? Your team can operate. You specifically should not be alone at night. Not until... How long? I don't know. She breathed out slowly. The lamp on the work table cast warm light across the scattered sketches, the leather swatches, the life she had built, careful and precise and fully hers. She looked at his hand over hers. One condition, she said. He waited. You tell me the truth. All of it. No more managed distance. If my daughter and I are at risk because of your world, I need to know what that world actually is. He was quiet for a moment. That is not a small ask, he said. No, Linda agreed. It isn't. Another silence. Agreed, he said. Outside, a car started in the street. Somewhere in the city, in a building Junwoo would soon be burning to the ground metaphorically, and perhaps not entirely metaphorically. A man who had made the mistake of targeting Linda Ose did not yet know what he had set in motion. Inside the studio, Seo Junwoo and the woman he had spent 14 months trying not to love sat in the warm lamplight with their hands together, and the weight of everything unsaid between them, and the story that had been paused for over a year began again. She had not agreed to anything yet, but she had not let go of his hand either. And that, the city seemed to understand, was how the most dangerous things always began.